Hi parents, this is Mrs. Meller again. I just wanted to quickly run through some frequently asked questions on our 40 book challenge this year. Um, I have made a whole section for you on my Canvas page with some resources for you for 40 book challenge to make it a little bit more digestible. How you get to that, canyonsdistrict.org or a Sunrise homepage. Click on the Canvas icon, enter your child's username and password. This can be found on your Skyward account, or if you have set up a parent Canvas page, you can use that access as well. So once you're into Canvas, it will come to my homepage. If you have trouble getting this far, let me know. I can help you work through that. I know that switching over to Canvas this year is kind of tricky. On the side, that left-hand bar, you're going to hit that modules. Modules is usually where I'm going to keep all of our weekly assignments, our daily assignments. I have made under the modules a tab that is just for you as parents. So go ahead and hit that modules. And then I have a module called Parent Helps, and I'm going to leave this open all year. It is just resources for you. That my goal was just to give you some videos, to give you some help accessing and working through what we do in 4th grade. If your drop-down menu is not open, go ahead and hit that drop-down menu on Parent Helps. The very first item I have put there is our 40 book resources. Under your 40 book resources, you are going to find this video that I'll leave up, so if you have questions, you can watch it. You are going to find a book list, a suggested book list that I'm going to talk about, and you're going to find a tally sheet, which I'll also talk about. So, 40 book resources, one of the things that is under there is my 4th grade book list. This is just a suggestion. It is not you have to only read books off this list. This is just a place to start. I know 40 books is a lot to read, and sometimes we get a handful of books in and we're like, I'm out of ideas. What else should I read? This is just a place for you to look to get ideas. One thing that's included in this is called a Lexile Chart. A Lexile is a word that if you have older kids, you may be more familiar with. From this point on, instead of talking about fluency in words per minute, we're going to be talking about a student's comprehension level, and we measure that using a number called a Lexile. This is a national number, so you can Google it, you can look all over, and it's really easy to find Lexiles on books. It's something our whole nation in education uses. So I have highlighted on this where your child should be reading for 4th grade. So we're looking at that green. They should be reading Lexiles 770 to 885. If they're above that or below that, that is okay, but that's what we are aiming for in 4th grade. If you continue through this book list, I have listed almost 100 books I think are on there. I have a picture of the cover. I have a quick plot summary. So if you can kind of read through the plot summary and go, oh yeah, that sounds like a book my child would be interested in, or that book isn't going to be for us. That's okay. At the top of it, I have listed the authors. I have listed the number of pages, and I have listed the Lexile. Now, it is okay if you're not quite reading books that are 770 yet. I understand kids need to read for enjoyment. I want them to read for fun. I don't want them reading books that are so challenging all the time that reading becomes a chore. So as long as they're really above like 650, I'm okay with that. If we get down into the 300 to 500 range, that becomes a concern to me because then that's like 1st and 2nd grade level books, and I really want them reading 4th grade appropriate material. I can make exceptions for your child if they're really struggling. Come talk to me, but try to aim for 650 or above. I've also listed the genre that those books could fall under. With our 40 book challenge, there's different genres we would like them to explore and read, so that kind of gives you an idea if you're looking for a Newbery book or a fantasy book, that these books would pertain to that genre. Can kind of help you if you're unfamiliar with the books. And the next thing I put up there also with that same little information at the top is if it's a part of a series. Some kids really, really get into series and love them, and other kids don't love series. So I've included that information as well. So hopefully that book list just gives you a place to start, just gives you something to explore. No, you don't have to stick to it. It's just there for you. Next thing you're going to find under this resource is a tally sheet. Now this tally sheet I'm going to have printed off, I'm going to have in your kid's backpack. It is going to live in their homework folder in the back. It's going to come and go from school and back and forth every day, so hopefully you won't lose it. If it does get lost, we can reprint this one. I did put this online just so you know what genres we're looking for. You can reference it whenever you need to in case I have their folder at school or it's stuck in their backpack or it's been left at grandma's house or whatever the case may be. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is the number of pages. We are looking for books that are a minimum of 100 pages. Anything less than that kind of becomes a book that's too easy. So 100 pages to 249 we count as one book. But so that kids want and are encouraged to read bigger books, we count pages more than that as more books. So above 250, we're going to count as 2 books, and above 500 counts as 3. You don't need to memorize those numbers. Like I said, that's on their tally sheet. You can look. The kids get pretty good at knowing those numbers. I am also going to say I'm not going to be super strict. I know there is some books that cut off at like 92 or 97 pages. I'll count those usually as 100 pages. And there is a lot of books that end at like 242 pages. I will count that as 2 books. I don't want them crying because it's so close to 2 books, and so I will be lenient a little bit, know that, but it's got to be within about 10 pages. That's as much as I can give. The next thing I wanted to talk about is some of the different genres I wanted to highlight for you. Most of them you can figure out: fiction, fantasy, mystery. We're pretty familiar with those, but when it comes to some of the genres, it's hard to find 4th grade appropriate books. So I wanted to give you some ideas. The first one being Biography and Autobiography. If you go to a public library, they usually have a lot of those books in like a juvenile nonfiction section. The other thing I suggest is using these Scholastic books. There's 2 series that I really love. They're called the I Am and the Who Was series. And in both of these series, there is like 60 plus books. There's a ton for them to choose from. Really, really engaging books that teach them a lot about that individual, a lot about history. I've really enjoyed them. They do run about 92 pages, so they are short, they're quick, but they're very informative. The kids love them. I will count them. So that gives you a place to start there. The next one is poetry. Poetry can be kind of intimidating. I know I didn't read a lot of poetry until I was in high school. So I want to highlight a couple of my favorite children's authors of poetry, Shel Silverstein and Jack Prulunsky. Both of them write poetry for kids that is funny, it is silly, it makes sense to kids. They love it. So I would look for those books. Both of them have 5 or 6 books published each. So that's a great place to start there. Next one is classic stories. So what I mean by classic stories is stories like White Fang or Huckleberry Finn? Sorry, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. There we go. Treasure Island. Some of those classic books. Now, I realize most of those are written at a comprehension level much too high for our little elementary friends. So you can go to the library and you can request abridged versions, or junior classics is a lot of times what they call them. These are just some books I have in my room that are the junior classic version that are written for elementary students, but they still get the gist of the story. So that is what I am meaning. I am not reading that they go find a high school level book and read. These junior classics. The libraries have multiple publishers that have published series of these classics in a more abridged version for our elementary friends. So that's what you're looking for there. I do have a whole set in my room, and our Sunrise Library has sets as well. All right, and the last genre I want to talk about tonight is the graphic novels. So our friends love graphic novels. They are very, very popular right now. However, graphic novels don't really have good vocabulary. They don't develop characters very well. They don't have deep content. They're really not using critical thinking skills. They're not building emotions. They're a fun read. They're quick and easy. We love them. But I really don't want them to read 40 graphic novels this year. That's not going to develop their love of reading and help their reading improve. So what we have decided is not wanting to take away that option from kids because they do love them. And it is fun, and reading can be fun sometimes. I agree with that. Is that we are going to limit it to 4 graphic novels for the whole year. They can read more than that, but it's not going to count on their challenge. And graphic novels tend to be sometimes 250, 300, 350 pages, but there is not a lot of text on the page. And so just for this category, they cannot count for more than one book. One graphic novel is one book, no matter how many pages. And the last thing on graphic novels is they can't count for any other category. So they cannot use graphic novels under their reader's choice or their fiction category. They need to stay under graphic novels. Other books, such as like a book that may be a Newbery book, if my Newbery category was full, I could put it under fiction or reader's choice or wherever it could fit, but graphic novels, 4 for the whole year. So if your kid wants to read all 4 this first month, that's great, but then no more for the rest of the year. If they want to space them out throughout the year, that's also fine. But that's our rule with graphic novels. And I know it seems hard right now, but really by the end of the year, I'm hoping your child has kind of progressed from graphic novels and found that there's a lot of really good books in the world. I know I've had multiple kids come to me in past years and be like, Mrs. Muller, like, graphic novels are really dumb by May. Like, we like these other books way better. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And these were kids that loved graphic novels, and that's all they wanted to read at the beginning of the year. So help me out with this one, and we can help your kid discover some really amazing books. To help motivate your child. We know that saying finish by the end of the year, 40 books, is way too big of a goal if we don't help break it down for kids. So every month, we will be throwing a book party in the 4th grade. These book parties are a riot. We have a cardboard box party where they just get to build whatever they want with cardboard boxes. We have a bike and scooter party where they get to bring their bike, and we go over to the parking lot over on Londonderry Drive, which is a huge parking lot. They get to ride their bikes around for a bit. We have like an art station party where we get out Play-Doh and molding sand and clay and watercolors and paints, and they can choose different art projects just to sit and draw and work on for a while. We have a board game party where they can bring board games and play board games with friends. We try to keep them really fun, really motivating for kids. Each month they need to meet that goal though in order to come to my party. So we are going to start by the end of September, so August and September combined, they need to have 3 books signed off. And then after that, we're going to go up to 4 books a month. With this, you can kind of game the system. So let's say going into December is going to be a rough month. You have a lot of family parties going on. It's the holidays. You may want to save some of those graphic novels or that poetry book for December that you can buzz through really quickly. So kind of think about which months might be busier for your family and where you want to put some of those shorter books in, and which months you may have more time and you may want to read some longer books or some books that may take some more time. So think about that. Don't I tell the kids not to use all their easy books those first few months because then it really is hard the rest of the year. So, maybe read 3 hard books and an easy book. With this being said, if you read 3 books that first month, 4 books the rest of the month, including 4 in May, you get to 35 books. That is not to 40 books. So I will try this year to also read alouds during class. I do let kids count those. If they are reading a book as a family, I will count that. You are going to have to read more books than just this minimum list. This list is just the minimum to get to the party. But if you're going to make it to the full 40 books by the end of May, there are a few months you're going to have to read an extra book here and there to make your goal. Once your child has made 40 books for the year, they are invited to the rest of the parties for the year, and they are good to go. They don't have to continue to build each month. How this works is it is also new books. What I mean by that is at the end of September, I am going to highlight the books they have read that they have passed off for September, and they need to read 4 additional new books in October. Not just 1 more, but 4 brand new books. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I'll reiterate that with the kids. If that is confusing, let me know. At the end of the year, if they pass off, our tradition has been that we have the Sandy City Fire Department come with their fire trucks and they hook up to the fire hydrants and they spray those kids down, and it is a huge water party and the kids love it. I really just hope by then your kids have found a love for reading and found some good books that they enjoy. Some ideas of where to get some books: check out your public library. Check out that Sandy City Library, the Draper Library, the West Jordan Library. I know things are a little different with COVID, but I know public libraries are open. You can still check out books. It may look a little different. I think you may have to request them and then they just bring them to your car or something. But I know they're open. Our Sunrise Library is open. They can check out books. Our librarian is really fantastic at helping them find books for their 40 book challenge. If they'll go to her with at least a genre, then she can direct them to some great books. Audiobooks, I'm okay with audiobooks as long as they're following along with a real book in their hand. They're still getting that vocabulary. They're still developing those deeper thinking skills. So just make sure they have a real book in front of them. Audiobooks are a great way to also move a story along. If you have a kid that really struggles with reading, it helps get them into the story and keep it moving and keep them engaged, especially those first few chapters. There are 2 apps I really like, Overdrive and Libby. Both of them are free and they both connect right to your public libraries. And then you can check out books either electronically or check out audiobooks that way for free. Sometimes there's a wait list, but usually it goes pretty fast. So that is our 40 book challenge. If you have questions, let me know. And hopefully that gave you a little bit more direction on that.